I'm Melinda, and the Learning Center I've created augments a unit of study in social studies for 5th graders of the Great Depression. The Learning Center is divided into 3 sections: the economic, the geographical, and the history and cultural effects of the Great Depression. Before the unit begins, students will be asked to do 2 things. First, they'll have their work folder they will be given. And there will be many pictures of different children, their age group, younger, older, during the Great Depression. They'll be asked to choose a picture that speaks to them. And on their folder they'll put their name, and they'll also pick their avatar's name. And they will have the option to give some background on this child, where they came from, where they're going, where they live, and so they can identify and personalize this experience through the Learning Center. At the same time, throughout the Learning Center, we have a KWL chart. Well, they will write down what they know from the whole group studies that we've done through the unit, what they want to learn, what more they want to learn, and at the end, what they have learned. And as I said, during the Learning Unit Center, all the work that they will complete, they'll put in this folder to hand in. Also, at the beginning of the unit, students will be asked to choose a book to read. The students will be divided into groups based on their reading ability, which has already been determined before the Learning Center has been set up. And so therefore, the reading materials will be marked and color-coded, and their folders are marked and color-coded. And they will be required to choose one book that they will give a report on and do a worksheet later on in the unit. So that is how our unit begins, and now let's talk about the activities we have for our economic study. In the economic section of the Learning Center, students will be divided into cooperative groups pre-assigned by the teacher that include students from each of the color-coded learning ability levels. Assuming 6 groups, 3 of the groups will begin with the Monopoly activity, while the remaining 3 work on the bartering activity. In the Monopoly activity, students will begin by watching an excerpt, a 6-minute excerpt, from the documentary Under the Boardwalk, which gives a history of the Monopoly game that was developed in the 1930s as a commentary on the monetary system. They will be able to play the game for 2 class periods so that they have an understanding of the philosophy and principles. On the completion of that, they will fill out a game response form, which will be put into their work folder envelopes to be handed in. Then they will work on their own game. They will create a Monopoly game, again within the cooperative group, part of which will already be completed for them. They will be given a list of different themes that they can choose from, or they can develop their own theme within their neighborhood, their city, their school, whatever has meaning to them. They will also be able to choose whatever game pieces that integrate into their theme. And they will work on that for the remaining 3 days in the first week. The students who are participating in the bartering activity will be 3 groups, and each will be given a bag of resources different from the other, from art supplies and games and toys to food supplies. They will barter 3 rounds, taking what they have to barter for what they want, and then they also will complete a game response form. These activities will be used later in group studies to compare and contrast resource versus monetary-based economies. The groups that are participating in the bartering activity will participate for 1 day, and for the remainder of the first week, they will work on the activities in the other areas of the Learning Center. In the geographic section of the Learning Center, students will work independently to study the Dust Bowl and the subsequent migration of peoples out of the Midwest into the rest of the country. There are 3 activities in which to participate. The first, all students will participate in recreating the Dust Bowl by blowing wind through the straws and watching as the sand swirls and seeing how quickly it can cover articles that we've put in the sand, thereby understanding what happened on those farms in those huge dust storms and why it devastated the farms. The second activity is a mapping activity in which all students will participate. Every student will be given a copy of the map showing the migratory activity from people out of the plains. And then they will be given a blank map of the United States in which to recreate this map. An enrichment activity for the accelerated students will be to research Route 66, which is one of the main routes that was taken out of Oklahoma to California. For special ed students, we will also have a map that shows the routes, and they will trace those routes so that they can see and understand the states and where the people went. Within the Complete Learning Center, there are 3 bonus activities, one of which in the Geographic Center is an interactive game, migration game, which students may choose to participate. All students will have to participate in at least 2 of the bonus activities. The migration game is an interactive game where students create a family and are given limited resources to travel from Oklahoma to California. And this game is an excellent exercise in helping students to understand the difficulties that they faced and the risks that they faced in making that trip. In the History and Culture section of our Learning Center, if you will recall at the beginning of the 2-week period, students were asked to choose a book according to their reading level group, color-coded, and they've been reading that book for the past 2 weeks. When they completed their book, they were asked to fill out a reader response form. The books included both nonfiction and fiction, from FDR and the New Deal to Strawberry Hill, a story of a girl who had to move and acclimate to a new area, new friends. My Heart Will Not Sit Down. We have stories from other cultures. This is a story from Africa. We also have The Storyteller's Candle, a story about people who migrated from Puerto Rico during the Depression and what their experience was like coming to the United States. Rose's Journal, a wonderful story of a young girl who wrote down her experiences in the Dust Bowl. As you will recall, we had whole group discussions and studies of the Great Depression before we began our Learning Center, and part of that was learning and becoming familiar with a core vocabulary. Students will participate in activities that enhance the learning of those vocabulary words. The struggling students will complete the vocabulary graphic organizer on the core vocabulary words. Additional, more complex words will be added for the mid-level and accelerated group. Students will also have the option to participate in one of the bonus activities by playing the password game with the core vocabulary words. I don't know if you remember, but to play password, they will play this in... Oh, let me add that the graphic organizer can be completed either individually or in pairs. Now, back to our password game. If you will recall, to play password, one player in the game knew the word that the game player was to guess and the definition, but they could not tell the other game player what the word was. They can only give clues, either definitions, synonyms, antonyms, anything that could spur the other partner to guess the word. So in the core vocabulary words, students can choose to play in pairs and play the password game with the core vocabulary. And last bonus activity is the Music Center. During the Depression, much music was written, some to lament over the difficulties of the time. Some songs were happy songs meant to distract from the difficulties of the times. There are 5 songs available to the students. One is an instrumental, Sing, 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 by the Glenn Miller Band. The 4 other tunes, the students will be provided the lyrics, and they include Summertime, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Brother Can You Spare a Dime, and One Meatball. Using again the color-coded system, the mid-level group will be given, the mid and upper level group will have a worksheet to fill out called Depression-era music, in which they will choose out of those 5 songs 2 contrasting songs, and they will describe them and write about them, why they see them as contrasting. And an enrichment activity for the accelerated students would also be to go online and research other songs that were written during the Depression era and a commentary on them. For the struggling students, they will listen to all 5 songs, and they will only need to categorize the songs as either about being poor and lamenting songs, or those happy songs meant to distract. On the very last day of the unit, students will sit in a whole group, and they will be given a bag of popcorn on which their reading response forms have been stapled. And they will discuss their books, their experience in reading the books, the questions on the reader response form with each other. And if time permits, they will also have the ability to present and play their Monopoly games that they created. If time does not permit, we will provide a day on a Friday after the unit concludes where they can present and play the games that they created.